Hello and welcome to Round 3 feature match coverage here at Grand Prix Pittsburgh. I'm Brian David Marshall, joined in the booth by Pro Tour champion Jacob Van Lunen. And there you get a look. It says it right on his forehead, Channel Fireball. One of the fixtures of the Channel Fireball team for the last decade, Josh Utter-Leighton, playing Sultai Control against Adam Victor, playing Mardu Vehicles. Mardu Vehicles deck is so fast, they're already out of the gate. Toolcraft Exemplar in play for Adam Victor. And Attune with Ether is the play for Josh Utter-Leighton. Tell us about, we know the Mardu Vehicles deck very well if we watched the Pro Tour last week. Talk to me a little bit about what Josh Utter-Leighton's deck is. He's playing Aetherworks Marvel, but there's no there's no Eldrazi actually in sight, right?
Yeah, I mean, he is more of an energy deck than anything else. He's playing a couple counter spells. He's got 3 copies of Disallow, and then he's got a good amount of removal. But more than anything else, he's just trying to generate a ton of energy and then get Aetherworks Marvel on the board and then just start generating cards with it. He's not really trying to hit some sort of big spell. He doesn't want those dead cards in his hand. Instead, he's just got a bunch of interactive cards and a bunch of threats, and then Aetherworks Marvel just for value.
I mean, but again, look how fast this Vehicles deck is developing. Is there any time for him to do the things that this deck wants to do?
I mean, if he's able to get a draw where he could cast things like Fatal Push and Deadweight in the early turns of the game, then he could definitely catch up. But right now, he's under the gun.
So
I mean,
turn 2, Servant of the Conduit.
Yeah, these aggressive draws from Mardu Vehicles are so hard to beat, where you go 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop. It's absurd.
And the thing about this deck is there's also the Mardu Vehicles deck, in contrast to traditional aggro decks, it has a lot of little edges that it gets to build. It gets to scry with the Veteran Motorist. Dapala gets to get you some more cards. There we see a Cultivator Caravan, and in for 6 comes Adam Victor.
I mean, the way things are looking now, this game could end very quickly.
And Josh Utter-Leighton chooses to take down the Veteran Motorist here.
And that's a decent trade for Josh because he gets the 2 energy. They're still there, and gets to get that threat off the board and preserve his life total a little bit here. What's so incredible about this Toolcraft Exemplar is that once you have one of the vehicles in play, it suddenly has enough power to crew up the vehicle. So it combos so nicely with cards like Heart of Kirin or Cultivator's Caravan.
So we see another energy off of the Ether Hub, and there's Rogue Refiner. And this is a card that's really, we've seen a couple players. We just saw Chris Patello last round playing an Aetherworks Marvel deck, and Rogue Refiner just fits so perfectly into that deck. Draws your card, gets you energy, puts a pretty decent body on the table.
Yeah, it seems like such a strong card. I was really surprised we didn't see more of that card at the Pro Tour. And going forward in this format, I'm expecting we're going to see a lot of Rogue Refiners.
There you get a look at the card. 3/2 for 3. Reasonable stats. Able to trade with most of the creatures in these sort of unenhanced by +1/+1 counters. But who doesn't like to draw a card? It's very Simic-y. All right, in comes Toolcraft Exemplar now. Josh is happy to trade all day, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if he's trading, he's in a really good spot here because he already has enough energy where, he could just land a Marvel and start doing really exciting things next turn.
But Gideon, Ally of Zendikar, is the follow-up for Adam Victor. He doesn't have a 4th land for turn 4, but the Cultivator Caravan helps him power out the very powerful Planeswalker, and he makes a 2/2 Knight Ally token.
Yeah, getting an Ally of Zendikar is maybe the most powerful card in the format, pound for pound casting cost. And when you get to play this card when you're on the play into an empty board on the other side of the table, it's really hard to beat. And right now, Josh is going to have to find some way to get that Gideon off the table, and his deck's not great at that.
Well, here's his Aetherworks Marvel. So 7 energy. You can see in the upper part of the screen under his life total. He's got 7 energy so far, so he's able to activate that, go 6 cards deep, and see what he can find.
Yeah, Adam's probably terrified right now because he doesn't know what's in
He's
Josh's
thinking like
deck.
an Ulamog is coming.
Yeah. We know that Josh doesn't have access to a card like that, but it's got to be scary.
All right, Veteran Motorist.
And it's pretty hard to attack into an untapped Aetherworks Marvel here.
I mean, what else is the Mardu deck going to do?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you only have 1 line.
It's actually 2 lanes, 2 lines. They form a lane, and you drive in it. All right. Activates Gideon, crews the Cultivated Caravan, and sends a just heaping pile of damage into the red zone. Josh Utter-Layton spins the Marvel, paws at the top of his deck, looking for an answer. Now, the top end here for him is Torrential Gearhulk in this deck, right?
Yeah, that's as big as he goes. But what's exciting here is when he gets this Rogue Refiner, it's going to give him 2 energy. It's going to give him another 2 energy when it dies. It's going to draw him a card. He's going to trade with that Night token. He's taking a ton of damage, but if there's a way out of this, it looks like this. He's not that much further behind on the board than he was the last turn, and now he gets to have untapped mana along with that Marvel.
Josh has a Rogue Refiner, goes back up to 3 energy, draws the card. What is his block?
Yeah,
So you like the Knight here and just trade, make some sort of trade on the board, even though you're going to take the damage and you don't see a chump block here.
I don't see a chump block. It could happen. I don't know the deck as well as Josh does, obviously. But, he doesn't have an instant anywhere in his graveyard yet. Hitting a Torrential Gearhulk on the following turn isn't really an option.
Yeah, that's
and Gideon is just such a problem for Josh's deck. It really is. When you look at Josh's list, he really does not have much of a way to deal with a resolved Gideon.
So Josh decides his life total is a little bit more important than the board. Actually, chump blocks the Cultivated Caravan. Goes to 9. And has a lot of work to do here. See some counter spells in hand. Certainly see a disallow. That's not going to do much in this very developed board for Adam.
Yeah, definitely not where Josh wants to be.
I believe he has a Servant of the Conduit in hand, so he can get another spin. No. Passes the turn.
So I guess he's definitely got some action here. I mean, if he's not tapping that man on his turn, then we can be very confident he's got something to do.
Here comes another Veteran Modist for Adam Victor.
And the scry ability on this Veteran Motorist is just smoothing out Adam's draw and allowing him to have his way with this game.
Plus that little bonus that it gives to the crewed vehicle. And you really need to have something good here, Josh, because there is way in excess of 9 damage here. This is 15 he's looking at.
Yeah. He's going to have to be able to get multiple threats off the table.
So there's Aether Meltdown.
That's something.
That gets him to 6. He gets the energy from that and takes the Veteran Motorist out of the equation. And then what does the top of his deck offer him?
If he can find a way out of this, I'll be really impressed.
There you get a look at Aether Meltdown. Started seeing that card show up at the Pro Tour. There were a few people who had it. It's kind of nice against the Heart of Kieran.
Now, something that kind of surprised me here is I think Josh had Murder in his hand. So I'm surprised he didn't use that before activating the Marvel, because if he does hit a Torrential Gearhulk, then he doesn't get to flashback the Murder. He doesn't have any instants in his graveyard right now. So that may have been a bit of a misstep here for Josh, but it's a difficult situation no matter how you cut it here. There's not really much you could... Maybe it was not a murder. It's probably
I do not think
dead
it was
weight.
a murder.
Yeah, it doesn't even look like there's murder in his deck here.
I was.
Oh, okay.
So finds a Fatal Push.
Yeah, not the most exciting card to marvel into.
Oh no, you were right. He does have a murder. There you go.
Oh yeah, it's right there.
And Josh is going to go to 4 here. And lives to fight another turn.
Yeah, I'm surprised he actually made it to another turn here.
So this looks like a tune with Ether.
And if Josh finds his way back into this game, it'd be pretty impressive.
Yeah. Still not an answer to that Gideon, which has just been chugging along here.
Yeah, and again, it's a card that his deck is very, very weak to. Especially now that it has 6 loyalty. I mean, it's even going to live through a Torrential Gearhulk attack, which means that Josh is going to have to do a lot of work just to get this thing off the table.
Here comes Server to the Conduit. He's up to 4 energy.
And he's just getting to spin this Marvel over and over and over again. It's kind of exciting.
So on the board, he can jump block and go to 1 here. Get himself another turn.
And he's probably got some more action in hand, too. It's looking like Josh... I mean, the Gideon is just a problem that's going to keep on coming, so there's that issue, but...
Gideon ticks up to 7.
But Adam is a bit choked on black mana, and if he chooses to use that 1 energy he has to use Unlicensed Disintegration...
There's Unlicensed Disintegration. Josh is thinking about it.
And it looks like he does have Disallow in hand.
He does that, yeah, he's had a Disallow in hand this whole game. But I don't think that's what he's doing here. Looks like another Aether Meltdown. He's going to Aether Meltdown. That's going to get him to 6 energy. He's going to spin the Marvel.
Oh, I like this.
Finds another Marvel. Ends up with 2 energy in that exchange. Goes to 3 energy when the Servant dies. Yeah, in comes Gideon though, and that is the game. Game 1 to Adam Victor over Josh Sugar-Layton. And that's that was the story of the Pro Tour really there. That Mardu Vehicles deck was running over all the sweet lists.
Yeah. And I mean, when you win a die roll and you go 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, and then play Gideon, it's pretty hard to lose a game. Josh Sugar-Layton, he fought pretty hard there, tried to get back into it. The problem is that his deck in the first game is just so soft to a resolved Gideon. And Adam, he was wise to just use that Gideon as aggressively as he could have, just constantly turning it into a body, really putting the pressure on Josh and making sure that every turn, when he passed the turn, that he was back to at least the same advantage that he had the turn prior. And Josh just couldn't get his footing back into the game, even after activating Marvel 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, what are we seeing out of Adam's Mardu Vehicles deck post-Pro Tour? I'm not seeing the 9th plus 1-drop creatures out of his list. It looks like he has the basic 8 1-drops in terms of the Thraben Inspectors and the Toolcraft Exemplars, but has gone up to the full 4 Fatal push.
Yeah, which seems wise, especially after last weekend. And anybody who's been following Magic closely during this week has been playing on Magic Online, they'll know that Black Ring Constrictor decks are everywhere.
Dude,
just everywhere.
I played, 30 some matches this week of Standard over 2 days, and I played 22 green-black decks on Magic Online.
Yeah. I mean, it's just everywhere right now.
5 Sultai Control, 3 miscellaneous.
Were any of them a sweet Aetherworks Marvel deck?
No, none of. I mean, maybe none of the sweet decks. None of the sweet decks found a 3rd land or whatever.
Yeah, but looking at Adam's sideboard, he's got some interesting stuff going on here too. He has 3 copies of Metallic Rebuke, and when you're playing against a deck where you don't really know what's going on, he saw this Aetherworks Marvel, but he didn't really see what Josh is trying to do so much. He may try to jump through some hoops here in post board and make his deck a little less aggressive so that it can answer what Josh is trying to do. And that kind of plays into Josh's plan here, because Josh's deck is not necessarily a combo-oriented deck. He is using Aetherworks Marvel strictly as a card advantage engine.
Keep in mind, Adam still doesn't know what Josh Sugar-Layton is doing. He hasn't seen what the Aetherworks Marvel payoff is yet.
Yeah, and what's exciting about Josh's deck here is that I feel like that situation comes up when people are going into game 2, even when Josh wins a lot of the time, right? Like he can just attack his opponent with like energy producing stuff, and then marvel into like a disallow or a removal spell, and then win the game. And the opponent will be like, oh, well, he's playing Aetherworks Marvel. We have to play around these big payoff cards, and it's going to make his opponent's sideboard pretty poorly, I imagine, especially in the earlier rounds of the GP this weekend.
What are you seeing Josh bringing in out of his sideboard here?
Josh is definitely going to want more of the inexpensive removal. Deadweight is really good in this matchup. Grasp of Darkness, again, another very good card. To the Slaughter, I think, is one of Josh's best options here because it's a way for him to get Gideon off the table, and he can also pick off the knight that it made on the turn it came into play. I don't think we're going to see him bringing in World Breaker, or Painful Truths, or Negate. But the cards I'm really expecting him to bring in here are an extra copy of Aether Meltdown, Deadweight, Grasp of Darkness, and To the Slaughter.
And then between the Deadweights, the Attune with Ethers, you think Delirium is easy enough for him to get to for that To the Slaughter?
Yeah, I mean, the Deadweight and the Aether Meltdown obviously help by being enchantments, but then he has, instants in his deck, he has sorceries in his deck, he has creatures in his deck. His deck has a lot of different card types, and I think it shouldn't be too difficult for him to get Delirium if he's, getting to stretch the game out as much as he's going to get to do when he's on the play. And being on the play is a big difference from being on the draw here. I mean, Disallow on the draw in this matchup just looks like a dead card. You might as well not have even drawn a card.
There you get a good look at the two players. Josh Utter-Leyton, someone who is eligible this year for the Hall of Fame. So this marks his 10th year on the Pro Tour. He's averaged a Pro Tour top 8 every 2 seasons, 5 Pro Tour top 8s,
incredible.
which is just incredible. It's a great rate. And I've had him penciled in for a couple of years here, waiting for this year.
Oh yeah, I mean he's definitely getting my vote. I imagine he's going to be getting a vote from most people. He is one of the best deck builders, and he's consistently at top tables. He really, as part of that, flagship Channel Fireball team, it kind of changed the way Magic was played at a high level.
I wonder if we would have the team series as it stands right now without that sort of introduction of, the Channel Fireball, which then, was people iterated off of to form all these, big teams and boot camps that have happened before Pro Tours now for the last couple of years. Now we're taking a look across the table while those guys mulligan. See Andrew Boswell there on your left. He's playing green-white tokens, and he's playing against Alex Magleton with Black Constrictor. Alex Magleton, of course, one of the members of Team East-West Ball. We've talked about those super teams, and he was a member of, I believe, Mass Drop East for this last Pro Tour.
Yeah, Alex Magleton has been.
Oh, no, Alex Magleton, I'm sorry, it was Mox Box Ball.
Yeah, he's been a killer at Grand Prix for the better part of a decade now.
You see, he's up a game here, so you don't want to refer to a deck as bad guys, but let's face it, Black-Green Constrictor is the bad guys at this point.
Well, he knows his way around some +1/+1 counters, too. I mean, he has been playing Affinity for a very long time, and he knows how to sacrifice a Ravager. So
long Tusk Cub attack there for Alex Magleton, and there you see Green Belt Rampager. Card that, people dipped their toe into a little bit at the Pro Tour, but I think we're going to see some more of here. All right, we'll give you an idea how this match is going, but we're going to go back to our main match between Adam Victor and Josh Utter-Leyton, and they are underway. It looks like both players kept 6. And on turn 2, we see a Servant of the Conduit for Josh Utter-Leyton.
Yeah, and that card just seems so much better on the play than.
Are you interested in turn 3 Aetherworks Marvel?
I am. That is something I'm in the market for.
And then one of the breakout cards also from the Pro Tour, Jacob, the Scrap Heap Scrounger.
Yeah, that card has been incredible, for a while now. It's just so good. The fact that it has 3 power, meaning that it crews up Heart of Kirin and crews up Cultivator's Caravan, while also just being this threat that keeps on coming back to punish people who are trying to do crazy things with Dynavolt Tower and whatnot. It is one of the best threats in this format. It really punishes control decks while also allowing you to make so many of your other cards just run so much cleaner.
So Rogue Refiner for Josh Utter-Leyton draws him a card, gets him some energy, and steps out of the way of Josh Layton. Admiring those APAC planes there, the prettiest planes from Adam Victor.
Are there better planes in existence?
I mean, some people have talked about windmill planes, but
yeah, I know Brian Cowell's partial to the mashed potatoes.
3-man inspector and veteran motorist for Adam on turn 3 here, and he's just starting to go wide.
And he's already casting 2 spells a turn, and that's exactly where you want to be.
Yeah, would have liked a spell on turn 1, right? You want to go 1, 2, 1, 2.
Yeah, ideally, that would be.
We really haven't seen the vehicles out of this vehicle deck. We did see the one cultivator caravan in the first game, but we haven't seen the Heart of Kirin, which was such a ubiquitous card at the Pro Tour.
Yeah, Josh's deck is actually very well equipped to handle vehicles themselves. I think the card in Adam's deck that is the biggest problem for Josh is Gideon. I think as long as Josh is able to keep Gideon off the table, this should be a pretty good matchup for him. I would be surprised if he found a way to lose.
Well, there's an interesting card in hand for Adam Victor. You talked about Metallic Rebuke, but is that a Spell Queller I spy?
Oh, wow.
You know, a card that is just feasts on Aetherworks Marvel.
Yeah, that is a dangerous, dangerous card for Josh to see here. Although, for what it's worth, Josh's deck has such an abundance of removal that the Spell Queller, as long as it's not hitting something like Counter Magic or the like, it's not going to be too much of a blowout.
Oh, wow. So, if one Planeswalker was difficult for Josh to deal with, how about Chandra, Torch of Defiance here as well?
Yeah, also a very difficult card for Josh's deck to deal with. I think Planeswalkers in general are just hard for him.
And that is just going to get negated.
So he did bring in the negates, and that's a concession to how strong Planeswalkers are against this deck.
But you know what? I'm going to attack you for 6.
Yeah, and that veteran motorist is definitely trading with something, but I think the Scrounger's just going to get in for 3 here.
Scroungers have a way of, coming back.
Yeah.
But Aether Meltdown, a perfect card to take that Scrounger out of the equation. Can't crew any vehicles, get a little bit of energy. So Josh Layton looking a lot better here in game 2. Is the Scrap Heap Scrounger a -1/2 creature right now?
That can't block. Not a very exciting card right now.
It can attack if it likes.
It can.
Doesn't really do anything.
I think its best application right now would be alongside a Pia Nalar.
And that's a card that Adam has access to?
He has 1 copy, yes.
All right, another servant for Josh. He's going to get the bigger die here. As he goes up to 7 energy. Botanical Sanctum. And there is Gideon.
Yeah, and
now if you're Adam, you're just slamming that down here?
Oh, I can't imagine you don't.
Here's Gideon. Does Josh have an answer? Does he have another negate? No.
Again, it's
you see Josh nodding. Yep.
Yeah, that's it. And, right there, just that draw step, it took this game from the point where I felt like it was very difficult for Josh to lose to the exact opposite scenario.
So another Aether Meltdown. Josh is on 8 energy now. He's going to send both of his servants at the Gideon. Gideon's going to fall to 2, and he's going to chump block with his token. But Josh has a follow-up, 4 mana, Glimmer of Genius.
It's pretty exciting. Now you can take him and to hopefully find a Marvel.
You think he's looking for a 5th land here?
Maybe. I mean, he could just want to start hitting things like Torrential Gear Hulk. I mean, that's a way he could get back into this game.
Yeah, I think he's looking for the 5th land as he doesn't want to miss any land drops as he's getting towards a Gear Hulk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a pretty good job of stemming the tide here by Josh.
Yeah, but now Adam, this turn, is going to get to do
There's a Night Owl.
whatever he wants to. And he could leave open mana for Spell Queller even.
Yeah, passes the turn with lots of options in it. He's got the Unlicensed Disintegration, and he has the Spell Queller.
And it's odd, like in these situations, a lot of the time you're thinking, oh, he's just passing the turn and not playing a spell. Like, that's got to be good for the control player. But the fact that that Gideon's on the table just churning out those night tokens really changes everything.
Here's a Rogue Refiner for Joshua to Leighton. Maybe sensing something's up.
Yeah.
Draws a card. And here is a tune with Ether now. So that's going to get him his 6th land.
It's the 14 energy now.
Yeah. Can still just whittle away Adam's board a little bit, send his servants both at the Gideon.
Yeah, and I mean, one of those servants probably going to trade with the knight, but that's not even the end of the world because he's also going to get to gobble up that inspector, and he's going to get some energy out of the servant. And while he kind of has an arbitrarily large amount of energy now, it could come in handy if he draws a Marvel at any point.
Wow. He's going to go Fatal Push on the token. There you see it. Just seems crazy to play any deck that does not have access to black mana this weekend, just based on the prevalence of the Mardu Vehicles decks and the green-black decks. Wow, look at this. Spell Queller is playing the Ambusher here.
And it was wise here of Adam to...
lets the Fatal Push resolve, but then in mid-combat flashes in the Spell Queller to ambush one of those Servants of the Conduit.
Yeah, that's a really powerful card here. I mean, he's essentially playing a 3-mana flash 2/3 flyer that kills one of his opponent's creatures.
But Josh has another Fatal Push. He takes down the Thraben Inspector, and more importantly, he's taking down that Gideon. All right, Adam sacrifices a clue at the end of the turn.
Yeah, getting that Gideon off the table is huge for Josh. I mean...
But, you know, the Sultai control deck playing Hellbent right now, and the Mardu Vehicles deck, it's got a grip full of spells.
Yeah, I mean, Josh had to sink a lot of actual cards into night tokens to get that Gideon off the table. We just see how strong Gideon is in the matchup. It's absurd.
Yeah, Gideon basically forced Josh to expend 3 whole cards to kill it.
Yeah, and more than 4 mana.
So in comes the Spell Queller. Down comes Scrap Heap Scrounger. And what is the play now for Josh?
And Josh isn't even in the worst racing situation here. I mean, he doesn't know about the Unlicensed Disintegration on the other side of the table, but...
He gets in for 5 here. And now, at this stage of the game, all you're thinking about is Torrential Gearhulk from Josh Utterley, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, end of the turn, he's going to Unlicensed Disintegrate the Rogue Refiner. He's willing to take the damage there. Gets an extra 3 points of damage from the having an artifact and the Scrap Heap Scroungers. And now swings in for 5. Josh is falling to 7 here.
Yeah, if he doesn't have anything. Did he draw a Gearhulk? Doesn't look like it.
I think if he had drawn a Gearhulk, he would have negated.
The Unlicensed Disintegration, yeah.
And there's Heart of Kieran.
Most likely.
There's Depala. Wow. I'm like, now I'll empty my hand. For Josh. 15 energy, nothing to do with it.
No, hasn't seen. And it was marvelous. He's gotten a chance to scry through his deck and draw quite a few cards, too. Sometimes it's just not there, though.
Left in hand. Passes the turn.
And this could just be the end right now.
There's Fatal Push for the Servant. Activate Needle Spires.
Yeah, and I'd be very surprised if Josh didn't die this
Yeah.
turn. Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're going to crit? Yep, that's it. So Josh Utter Layton extends the hand. Adam Victor goes to 3-0 with Mardu Vehicles. There you get a look at him. The Montreal player took down one of the most dominant players in the last decade of Magic. Great job, Adam Victor, with Mardu Vehicles. So here we go. This is when last we left Andrew Boswell and Alex Magiton, they were in game 2. They are still mired in game 2. There you see Alex Magiton high-fiving someone. Andrew Boswell shows him. I think this was match here for Alex Magiton. And that was the high five. Andrew Boswell shows the hand.
Yeah.
And I believe, yeah, that was Alex Magiton 2-0. He goes to 3-0 here over Andrew Boswell. And I'm not sure if we have any more Magic being played at this moment. We're going to check. We still do have another match to show you, though, of course.
So Alex Magiton is playing the energy version of Black Ring Constructor, which we've seen a lot more of this last week. Plays cards like Greenbelt Rampager, which you mentioned before, and that's one of the biggest detractors right now from Mardu Vehicles is that the 3/4 body is just so strong.
We'll get a chance to talk about Green-Black Constrictor in a couple minutes, but right now we have a couple commercial messages, and then we will be back with more round 3 action. Welcome back to coverage here, round 3 of Grand Prix Pittsburgh. Brian David Marshall here with Jacob Van Lunen, and we are watching game 1 between Ralph Batesh playing Grixis Control. Ralph Batesh, of course, 3 Grand Prix top 8s, including that win in Detroit. And then he's playing against Paul Mills. And Paul Mills is, he only gets to play in a couple Grand Prix a year. He's a chemist, has a couple kids, so not as
Nice.
not as
Team
easy.
dad. Team
Not as
dad.
easy. Yeah, I know you're rooting
Yeah.
for him now. Actually, just one kid. Sorry.
Still team dad.
Couple
Still
of
team
GPs
dad.
a year,
Okay.
one kid. Not one GP a year, 2 kids. And he's playing Black-Green Delirium, but that's actually, I believe he's actually looking at his list. That's actually, it's a Sultai list, right?
Yes, this is Sultai here.
So there you see the island. Really sweet island there from Paul Mills.
That beta.
Yeah, beautiful.
Marcool Island.
So Liliana is ticking up here, and is a real threat. What's the Grixis Control deck able to do to stop her from ultimately taking over the game?
So this is going to be a common thing we talk about quite a bit this weekend for these control decks is once the opponent resolves a Planeswalker, it's pretty tough for them. Ralph can get back into the game by, using a card like Kalidas, Trader of Get, just to attack the Liliana, which, your opponent probably has a lot of counter magic and removal at this point. He can also use Torrential Gearhulk to pressure the Liliana. But besides that, the only way he has to get any loyalty counters off of it is unlicensed disintegration.
All right, we've reached for the bigger die. Liliana is now at 7 loyalty, and that is the magic number for her.
It is. I mean, if Paul Mills is able to get the turn back without Ralph being able to pressure Liliana, no mana being tapped by Ralph there. It looks like we're about to see an ultimate. Pretty exciting stuff.
And discard for Ralph Batesh just says go, discards a Fatal Push. Again, this is game 1, so, obviously both of these players came packing, all sorts of cards for things like black-green Constrictor and for Mardu vehicles. So, you're going to see cards like Fatal Push. One of the attractions, I think, of playing a control deck in this tournament is that you get to play Fatal Push, but you also get to, nerf your opponent's Fatal Pushes. So there's Ishkanah, Graph Widow, comes down for Paul. And he goes up to 8 on Liliana. Goes up to 8, unlicensed disintegration, takes down the Graph Widow.
Oh, interesting. And all of his mana's tapped here, too. Kind of gave.
And there's a window for Ralph Batesh, but he can't quite fit through it.
Yeah. Cannot capitalize on that. And that's got to be disheartening for Ralph, because I'm sure when he saw that Liliana not get ultimated right away, he was like, there are cards in my deck that could do something here.
But at the same time, Paul looked at that and said, you know what? If he couldn't stop it from getting to 7, it's very unlikely he can do anything about it if I get it to 8. And there we go. We're going to get a Liliana emblem. That is going to get disallowed, and that's what Paul was playing around. So disallow is going to counter the ultimate of Liliana.
That's the best disallow I've ever seen in my entire life.
It would have been better last turn if he actually used up all his loyalty. Wow, and there's a Traverse. Traverse is going to get a land.
And more often than not, disallow is just a cancel, which is a fine card. But when it does something special, it can do something really special, like we just saw there.
It's just it's like, if you're going to ultimate that, that's going to be many turns from now, at which point I might have a Torrential Gearhulk that has something to say about it. Wow. Ralph Batesh with the disallow on the Liliana ultimate. So anticipate at the end of turn for Ralph Batesh. Just using all his mana in this turn, finally, after not doing anything for multiple turns.
And it's still not looking the best for Ralph. I mean, he does have a single copy of Ruinous Path in his deck. That's one way to get it off the table. He's also only on 5 lands, and these control mirrors, hitting your land drops is just so important.
There's a Wandering Fumarole for him. And it looks like Paul Mills is he hulking up an army in hand here?
It looks like it. It looks like he just has torrential gear hulks for days in his hand.
There's Glimmer of Genius, Ralph Patesh. He's going to get to scry 2, draw 2, get 2 energy.
2 of everything.
Yeah. Yeah, you and I were talking yesterday about this Grixis control deck as something that was just kind of interesting, that ability to torrential gear hulk into unlicensed disintegration. You know, I've had people 3-for-1 me with that, where they get to kill my planeswalker with the 3 damage. Yeah. And, you get an artifact off the torrential gear hulk. You get to block something. Not quite how this one looks like it'll work out. We're not going to see a lot of creatures running into the red zone here.
It's unlikely, but, I mean, it doesn't look like Paul has much of the way of counter magic, especially in this first game. So Ralph could just get aggressive with the gear hulk if he wanted to.
This is just like, Rich Hagon must be in his glory here. This is just stare at each other, do nothing magic. This is what he loves.
I've seen a Liliana get ticked up for absolutely no value like 5 turns in a row now. People have drawn 2 cards.
Yeah, we're nowhere near the counting library stage yet.
Oh not even close.
But this game could conceivably go there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
All right. Here's a torrential gear hulk from Paul Mills. He's like, I don't want to count. I don't want to count your library. Let's start digging here. Let's get this game going.
And Ralph just gonna disallow.
Ralph's gonna torrential gear hulk with his own, and he's gonna unlicensed disintegrate it. And he's going to redirect the 3 damage to Liliana, and he's going to clear the Liliana off the board. This game looked hopeless for Ralph Patesh. And now suddenly he's cleared the Planeswalker. He's dealt with, one of the big game-closing threats for Paul Mills' deck in form of Torrential Gear Hulk. And now Ralph has the Torrential Gear Hulk advantage.
Yeah, and Paul didn't even have an instant in his graveyard, so Paul got no value out of that. And Ralph's Torrential Gear Hulk was able to just be a 3-for-1.
Yeah, but here's a Noxious Gear Hulk, and that is going to take out Ralph's threat and give a little life boost here to Paul Mills.
Yeah, gears are grinding.
Yeah.
Down in the feature match area.
Harnessed Lightning is going to take out the Noxious Gear Hulk. Not a lot of game-ending threats in either of these decks, right? What's the general count of threats? You have the deck list in front of you, Jake. How many ways to close out a game do these two players have?
So Paul Mills definitely has more, and Paul Mills also has the ability to kind of chain Ishkanaz, or he has Walking Ballista. He has a couple copies. He has Mind Rack Demons. Paul Mills does have a decent amount of threats in his deck. Ralph, on the other hand, Ralph has 4 Torrential Gear Hulks, 3 Kalitas, and then lands that become creatures.
All right. Meanwhile, Paul Mills drew Green Sun Zenith, a.k.a. Traverse the Ulvenwald with Delirium, and it was negated by Ralph Patesh. But here's Torrential Gear Hulk now from Paul Mills. And does he still just not have anything?
It looks like he still is just...
He's just playing like some giant creature.
Just playing a big 5/6.
And it's going to get another unlicensed disintegration from Ralph Patesh. To me, one of the signature cards in that Grixis deck.
Yeah. I mean, easier to cast than Murder. Kills Planeswalkers.
So tons of land for Paul. 2 energy. Just a couple fewer lands maybe for Ralph. 3 energy. And here comes Glimmer of Genius from Ralph at the end of Paul's turn.
Yeah, and I mean, that's 2 Glimmer of Genius now from Ralph, and both of those have been really good for him.
And he's like, yep, these are the 2 cards I want. I don't need to scry.
I think it was Disallow at plus Torrential Gear Hulk. Doesn't really get much better.
Yeah, no, it really doesn't. Players leaving their Evolving Wilds uncracked here.
Yeah, and that's a concession to Fatal Push.
Yeah. Here is Torrential Gearhulk. He's like, what do you got? He's like, well, I've got a Glimmer of Genius. From Paul Mills. He goes digging for something.
I mean, Ralph may just let that resolve. No.
No. No. So he disallows
not allow it.
the Glimmer. And then he's going to cast his own Glimmer. So that's his third Glimmer of the match, of the game. And then he just, look at that, just pauses. Like just on top with a ton of land in play, gets to attack. Paul Mills, there you see the correct life total now. He'd gained that life off Noxious Gearhulk, and he is going to attack Paul down to 21. Now Paul's like, I got to thin my deck. I got
to find something.
Yeah.
Be funny if Paul ended up getting punished by Kalidas now. That he sacrificed the Evolving Wilds before saving it to use alongside Fatal Push.
You have a mean sense of humor. That's
Well,
funny.
that's
funny.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting. You know, it's fun watching the.
It's fun. I also have a mean sense of humor. Of course, it's funny. A lot of cards in hand for Paul Mills here, and there you see the Mind Rack Demon.
Yeah, that is a Mind Rack Demon, and it's a card that.
And there were some instants now.
Yeah.
Like,
now there's two Torrential Gearhulks.
He's like, where were you? Now
Not
Ralph
quite as bad as they were.
Now Ralph will crack his Evolving Wilds. I wonder if that will be more impactful.
I imagine it will be. I imagine we may see a bit of something that will be revolting to Paul.
And we saw him discard a Fatal Push earlier in the game. But here we go. He was holding one, and it takes out Mind Rack Demon. There you see why that Evolving Wilds was just sitting on the board.
Yeah, he's able to take a card that is close to useless in the matchup and suddenly turn it into something very, very strong.
Here's another Torrential Gearhulk for Ralph Patesh, 3-time Grand Prix top 8 competitor, and Glimmer of Genius number 4 for the game.
That's a lot of genius. That's some powerful magic, if you will.
Really. We're beyond the Glimmer. We're like, no, he's just a straight up genius.
And this is the powerful magic stage of the game.
Where, the Torrential Gearhulk phase is so difficult to navigate. From the other side of the table.
Taking chunks out of you, countering your spells.
Yeah.
It's like 5-6 Mystic Snakes. It's disgusting.
Paul Mills falls to 11 here. What can he do to find his way out of this?
Ugh.
I imagine it's going to start with somehow regrowing that Noxious Gearhulk.
Yeah, I mean, if he can get, some type of chain going, he could survive for a while with Ishkana, Graph Widow. And then his deck does have the ability to use a card like Liliana, the Last Hope, to kind of chain Ishkanas.
Sure.
And then, create this just massive swarm of spiders, and then eventually can maybe drain Ralph out.
Look at that insane walking ballista that just got Fatal Pushed. And that is the game. Ralph Patesh up 1-0. We're going to jump ahead to game 2 here. And Paul Mills kicks things off with a Lumbering Falls.
Yeah, Paul Mills definitely the aggro in this matchup. He might have not known his role going into game 1, but now he definitely knows where he's supposed to be. In post-board, he does have some really interesting options going on here. And he has access to Obnixilis, the Tireless Tracker.
Transgress the Mind, though, from Ralph Patesh. Sees a hand with 3 lands, To the Slaughter, Glimmer of Genius, and Pick the Brain.
And we've seen how strong Glimmer of Genius is in these control mirrors.
He's going to write the cards down so he remembers, he just pick them off. Just good operations there. Something you always want to do. Though we have seen players at the GPs, what they'll do Paul should also write them down, or we'll see some players sometimes just put the cards that they've shown their opponents upside down in their hand as a way to sort of, oh yeah, he knows I have this, so I should play this land.
Yeah. The reason he's playing like that is because this card is in my hand.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know about this card. So
he takes Pick the Brain. Pretty good if you get to get all the Torrential Gear Hulks out of someone's deck in this matchup.
Yeah, I imagine that's a disaster for Ralph. I don't really know how he wins from there. It's a lot of work being put on the back of Kalidas. Although Ralph post-board does
can
have...
do a lot of work.
Yeah, post-board, Ralph also has 4 Glint Sleeve Siphoner.
Ooh.
A very like legacy-esque kind of sideboarding plan where you're bringing in your confidants out of your control deck because nobody's leaving in shocks or fatal pushes against Ralph. Like, he doesn't have the cards that those are good against.
So another Transgress the Mind says, what did you draw? Didn't really pick up anything, just another land. Takes the Glimmer of Genius and is tearing apart Paul's hand here.
And Paul, not even close to Delirium here. Like, the only thing in his graveyard is an Evolving Wilds because those Transgresses exile the card.
Yeah. Land number 4 for Paul. I'm curious to see if Ralph brought in those Glint Sleeve Siphoners.
It's interesting because in a matchup like this...
and you compare it to Dark Confidant, but let me tell you, when you draw a Torrential Gear Hulk off your Glint Sleeve Siphoner, it does not feel like Dark Confidant.
Yeah, it feels a little bit better than Dark Confidant. It is Menace, too. Like, it's really good at pressuring a Planeswalker.
Oh, yeah.
It's
I got a lot
card.
of illegal blocks messages on Magic Online this week. Glimmer of Genius for Alpha Patash at the end of Paul's turn. There it is. Glint Sleeve Siphoner. He did bring it in. Should be great in this matchup. But he knows about the To the Slaughter, and he is able to get himself to a position where he's going to disallow it. And now he's going to get to, conceivably could just draw cards for the next couple turns. He's got 4 energy. That's 2 card draws. If he gets 2 attacks, that's another card draw. So, for the next 3 turns, he can just pull away from Paul Mills in terms of card advantage.
Yeah, and unless Paul drew a removal spell in the last couple turns, he's in a lot of trouble.
Paul drew a Walking Ballista.
That's surprising that those are still in his deck.
Yeah, immediately goes to 3 and immediately pings the Siphoner. And I bet you Ralph was not expecting those to still be in the deck here.
Yeah, there's no way Ralph could have guessed that Walking Ballista would stay in the deck. And as a result of Walking Ballista staying in the deck, I imagine those Glint Sleeve Siphoners will not be in his deck in the 3rd game here. But that's just a great Walking Ballista.
Yeah, here comes the Ballista, but it is going to get munched by a Torrential Gear Hulk. Always scary to tack into 6 mana in this format, but there's 6 mana there for Paul Mills. So, that's not what happens. Glimmer of Genius, go up to 6, push both cards, draw 2. And we're going to see Murder come out for Paul. He's going to get that Gear Hulk out of the way. And in comes the Ballista.
Yeah, Walking Ballista just has so many interesting applications.
Yeah, and it's possible there are no fatal pushes in Ralph's deck right now.
Oh, yeah. It'd actually be hard to imagine him leaving those in.
So he has to use his unlicensed disintegrations to take this thing out.
For what it's worth, though, Ralph did see cards like Mind Rack Demon and other things that are technically targets for fatal push, though I don't think he wants to be, needing to use the Revolt on that card.
So picks away for 2.
Ralph still, even though he's behind on board here, still very much in the driver's seat. This is the 3rd Glimmer of Genius he's resolving.
Yeah. And that was really the key to keeping his deck humming along in game 1. You see that he is very much in control of this game. Another disallow in hand.
I think he has unlicensed disintegration also in hand.
Anticipate now. see him pushing a Harness Lightning, so he is not overly concerned with that Ballista, I can tell you that.
Yeah, even if Paul tries to dump some mana into it, he surely will have an answer here.
Ralph's at 8 mana here. Now, if you're Paul, do you start thinking about
Growing?
growing your Ballista here?
I think so. I mean, I don't think there's much else you could do. And the problem is that Ralph has had so much card selection over the last few turns.
Goes up, tries to go up to 3 counters. There's the Unlicensed Disintegration. So he's going to throw 2 counters at Ralph. And then Paul's going to untap. He has no threat. And we know Ralph's sitting on counter magic. So, Ralph making the Grixis control deck look pretty good here.
Absolutely. And when this deck's answers line up well to the opponent's threats, it is disgusting. I mean, Magic is a game of questions and answers, and a lot of the time I instruct new players to focus on good questions rather than good answers. But this is a lesson in how to answer what your opponent's doing.
If you remember when we tuned in Game 1, Paul Mills was the one asking the question. He's like, I'm about to ultimate a Planeswalker. Yeah. What are you going to do?
And, I will not allow it.
Yeah, it was not allowed. All right. And Ralph's got to feel happy about this as the Lumbering Falls gets in. Just Paul Mills just can't do anything else with his mana other than start to attack Ralph Batesh with his land.
Yeah, Lumbering Falls is decent here, though, for what it's worth. Torrential Gearhulk does kind of ruin its day, but we know that Paul does have more in his hands to deal with the next copy of Torrential Gearhulk.
So there's a Glint Sleeve Siphoner. And another Glint Sleeve Siphoner from Ralph. They were sitting in his hand while he waited for that Ballista to go away.
Yeah, another Ballista here would be backbreaking. We know that Ralph has counter magic, though.
You didn't say whose back was getting broken. So there's Transgress the Mind. So both players brought that card in, and it's going to get disallowed. What do you got, Paul Mills? Here's your window.
This is it, because if you pass the turn,
the enemy's gate is down.
Ugh.
Plays another land and says go. Ralph Batesh, 2 triggers from Glint Sleeve Siphoners. He can draw 2 cards this turn. He can draw 2 cards next turn as well.
Yeah, then he draws for his turn. That's pretty good.
Yeah, he's on 2 energy, goes to 3 energy. Oh, he had energy we couldn't even see off screen there. Attacks with both of his Siphoners.
Menace.
And, right, Ralph reminds him that it has Menace. So
he did still tap those lands. I don't know if that's... He might not hold him to it, but...
Paul Mills is under assault by Glint Sleeve Siphoners.
Yeah, a lot of people forget about that Menace.
And Ralph is just like, I got plenty of life here. I can draw some cards.
Yeah, let's hang out.
Not a card that was in his main deck. Not a card you're really excited about in a room full of Ballistas. Although it was in Brad Nelson's green-black deck at the Pro Tour.
Yeah, and I mean, he's still playing 4 copies of it. It's a card that has just been impressive. Even with the Walking Ballistas in the mirror, it's still a very good mirror card. It just has the capability to take game over.
And here we go. Look at this. Goes to 3 energy, draws 2 cards. Gets a draw for his turn. Sure, he's at 7. Whatever. Again, Paul not putting a tremendous amount of pressure on him. And Ralph clearly just digging for a Torrential Gearhulk here.
Yeah, and...
Goes up to 5 energy with his attack.
And he could be drawing 3 cards on his next turn, too.
I think he will. Yeah, there's no unlicensed disintegrations to worry about out of the Sultai deck. There's no real, instant speed damage that he's got to worry about.
Yeah, the only card he really has to worry about is Walking Ballista, which can, go to the dome.
Sure.
And the ability for these black-green X decks to have some sort of reach to be able to ping the opponent is actually very, very good in this format, and it's not to be understated. But in this situation, Ralph's just going to hang on to 7 life.
Yeah, he's done drawing cards. He's found what he was looking for.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, I've got all these. I've already got 7 cards in my hand, and I don't want to discard any of them. You don't seem to be doing much.
These Siphoners have done great work for him as attackers.
It's just an awesome sideboard plan here from Ralph. It really does feel Legacy-esque. Oh, they're going to take out all the cards that deal with this efficiently?
Next turn, Paul is able to activate 2 Lumbering Falls. If he has 2. No, he still only has the 1. Gets himself to 10 mana then.
He is playing a second copy of Lumbering Falls, though, so...
And there's Torrential Gearhulk looking to close this game out.
And he's even got mana to back this one up.
Yeah. Says Torrential Gearhulk. What is he targeting? Glimmer of Genius.
This is my surprised face.
Yeah.
And that's going to get negated, but Paul's still staring at lethal damage.
And there's an appetite for destruction on the Gearhulk, but Dispel. Wow. Flurry of counterspells there at the end.
Yeah. Bing, 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 bing,
and
bing.
Ralph Batesh goes to 3-0, playing Grixis Control. He takes down the Sultai Delirium deck. Glint Sleeve Siphoner, really just an amazing card there.
Yeah.
Just let him both decks are very similar, taking different approaches, but he just gets to pull away.
He just went on forever. Ralph's deck looked so good there, and the post-board plan just executed perfectly, just as he drew it up. Beautiful thing. Sometimes magic works how you plan it.
Yeah, I can tell you we have another game 3 to show you here.
Ooh.
So let's take a look. Let's go down to the floor, and okay, we're gonna hold on while we get that ready. But we do have a little bit more magic to show you. I'm excited. I mean, Grixis Control is a deck you and I were talking about a lot.
Yeah, on the way here. He's like Radiant Flames. He has Painful Truths on the board too. Oh man,
Painful Truths. A card everyone sees. Both of those cards, Radiant Flames and Painful Truths, seem to be cards people have forgotten about a little bit.
Yeah, and Painful Truths is a really, really powerful card. I think that, Glint Sleeve Siphoner also we saw how powerful it was there, and I think it was more powerful there than we're really going to see it be in any other match this weekend, likely, because when you're playing a control deck and it's the second game, and in the first game the only creature your opponent saw was Torrential Gearhulk, the only removal spells they're going to have left in their deck are going to cost 3 or more mana, and they're often going to be somewhat clunky. So suddenly Ralph has this card that pressures the opponent,
right,
demands an answer, and every answer in the opponent's deck costs more mana than it, and he's the control player.
Yeah.
So if he's able to play that on, when his opponent doesn't have access to enough mana, or if he has access to a card like Dispel, then suddenly his opponent's in this situation where they just have to let him start drawing extra cards, and then it becomes unwinnable for them because he has all this reactive arsenal in his hand.
All right. Well, we're going to be back after a couple of quick commercial messages, but I'm going to take a look some more at that Grixis Control deck in the meantime.